The courtroom smells like old wood and cold justice. I can hear the clock on the wall ticking, each second a tiny hammer against my skull. My hands rest on the polished table, fingers laced together so no one can see them trembling. Across the aisle, Richard sits with that smirk I've seen for 30 years, the one that says he's already won, that I'm just a formality, a checkbox on his way to freedom and his new life. I should be terrified. I should be broken. That's what he expects. Instead, I'm counting seconds until he realizes he never knew me at all. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 56 years old. For 3 decades, I built a legal consulting firm from nothing while my husband built his empire on my silence. Today, in this sterile room with its fluorescent lights and judgment-heavy air, that silence ends. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back. 30 years ago, Richard Collins was charming. He had this way of making you feel like the only person in the room, like your thoughts mattered, like you mattered. I was 26, fresh out of law school, hungry to change the world. He was 30, already climbing the ladder of success, and when he asked me to marry him, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. The first decade was good. We built things together, his business, my firm, our son Daniel. We had dinner parties where we laughed too loud and stayed up too late. We had inside jokes and shared dreams. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what happiness looks like. The second decade, cracks started showing. Richard worked later. Business trips multiplied. When he came home, he was distant, distracted. I told myself it was stress, that success came with a price. I threw myself into my work, into raising Daniel, into maintaining the perfect house and the perfect marriage and the perfect life. The third decade, I stopped lying to myself. I knew about the affairs, plural. I knew about the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the assets he was systematically hiding. I knew because I'm a legal consultant. I understand how men like Richard operate. They think their wives are too busy, too trusting, too stupid to notice. Richard forgot I graduated top of my class. What I didn't know was how far he would go. How he would turn our friends against me, whispering that I was unstable, paranoid, possibly unwell. How he would manipulate financial records to make it look like I was the one mismanaging funds. How he would set the stage so perfectly that when he filed for divorce 6 months ago, everyone nodded sympathetically and said, "Poor Richard, stuck with such a difficult woman for so long." Everyone except Daniel. My son is 30 now. Married to Sophia, a woman with a spine of steel and eyes that miss nothing. They came to me 3 months ago, sat me down at my kitchen table, the same table where Richard used to promise me forever, and told me they knew. They'd seen the text messages Richard carelessly left open. They'd heard the phone calls. They'd watched him gaslight me for years, and they were done being silent. "We're going to help you, Mum," Daniel said, his jaw set in a way that reminded me of the boy who used to defend other kids on the playground. "But you have to let us." Sophia leaned forward, her voice calm and clinical. "We need evidence, real evidence, not just what we suspect, but what we can prove." That's when 12-year-old Sophie walked into the room. My granddaughter, small for her age with Richard's dark hair and my stubborn chin. She was holding her phone and her eyes were older than they should be. "I've been recording, Grandma," she said quietly. "Every time Grandpa comes over and says mean things about you. Every time he talks on the phone about hiding money. Every time Uncle Paul," she meant Richard's lawyer, his college buddy who would lie under oath if it meant another yacht, "comes over to plan strategy. I saved everything on this." She held up a USB drive. It was pink, decorated with little stars. My throat closed. This child, this brave, brilliant child, had done what I couldn't. She documented the truth while I was still trying to process the betrayal. Now, sitting in this courtroom, that USB drive might as well be dynamite. Judge Matthews is 65, grey-haired, with a face that's seen too many divorces and too much human ugliness. She's fair, though. I researched her extensively. She doesn't tolerate games. Richard's lawyer, Paul Evans, is currently standing, painting me as an unreliable narrator of my own life. His voice is smooth, practiced. Your Honour, Mrs. Collins has made serious allegations against my client, but where's the proof? Mr. Collins has been nothing but forthcoming with his financial disclosures. If anything, it's Mrs. Collins who has been evasive, emotional, perhaps not entirely stable. The word hangs in the air like poison. My lawyer, Linda Harper, starts to object, but I touch her arm gently. Not yet. Let them think they're winning. Let Richard lean back in his chair with that satisfied smile. Let Paul spin his web of lies. Because in my purse, beneath my hands, I can feel the weight of Sophie's USB drive. Daniel catches my eye from the gallery. He's sitting with Sophia, both of them still as statues. Sophia's hand rests on his knee, steadying him. They know what's coming. Next to them, Sophie sits between her parents, her back straight, her eyes fixed on her grandfather. She doesn't look away when Richard glances at her. She doesn't smile. My brave girl. Paul is still talking, something about my alleged mismanagement of household finances, my supposed paranoia. I stop listening. Instead, I think about the recordings Sophie collected. Hours of them. Richard on the phone with his mistress, current one, not the previous 3, laughing about how easy it was to hide the beach house in the Cayman Shell Company. Richard telling Paul exactly how to structure the divorce so I'd walk away with almost nothing. Richard coaching his friends on what to say if called as witnesses. And the piece de resistance? Richard admitting on tape that he'd been systematically siphoning money from our joint accounts for 5 years, building his escape plan while I still believed we were partners. Your Honour, Linda finally says, rising with the graceful fury of a lioness. If I may? Judge Matthews nods. The defence has questioned my client's stability, her credibility, her financial competence. I'd like to submit evidence that speaks for itself. She walks to the AV cart. Sophie's USB drive clicks into the port. The screen flickers to life. The courtroom goes silent. Richard's voice fills the space, tinny through the speakers, but unmistakable. The date stamp shows 3 months ago. Told Margaret the investment account lost value. She doesn't check the statements. She trusts me. Fool. Laughter. Paul's voice. And the property in Grand Cayman? Under the LLC we discussed. Her name's nowhere on it. When this divorce goes through, she won't even know it exists. More laughter. The sound of glasses clicking. A toast to deception. I watch Richard's face drain of colour. Watch Paul freeze mid-gesture. Watch the smirk dissolve into something close to panic. Linda lets the recording play. 5 minutes. 10. Richard discussing hidden accounts. Richard bragging about affairs. Richard outlining exactly how he planned to manipulate the divorce proceedings. And then Sophie's voice small and clear. Grandpa, why do you talk about Grandma like that? A pause. Then Richard, irritated. Sophie, what are you doing here? This is adult conversation. I know. That's why I'm recording it. Grandma deserves to know the truth. The sharp sound of Richard discovering the phone. His curse. Sophie's running footsteps. The recording ends. The silence that follows is absolute. Judge Matthews removes her glasses slowly, cleaning them with deliberate care. When she speaks, her voice could cut diamond. Mr. Evans, does your client have anything to say? Paul is standing now, hands raised in placation. Your Honour, we had no knowledge of this recording. I'm not asking you. I'm asking Mr. Collins. Richard's mouth opens, closes. His carefully constructed facade is crumbling, and everyone can see the rot underneath. The entitled man who thought his money and his gender and his charm made him untouchable. Your Honour, he starts, and his voice actually shakes. This is clearly, my granddaughter is a child. She doesn't understand. She understands perfectly, I say. It's the first time I've spoken in court. My voice is steady, clear. 3 decades of silence, ending. She understands that her grandfather is a liar and a cheat. She understands that he tried to destroy her grandmother while pretending to be a devoted husband. She understands, Your Honour, what many adults refuse to see, that money and power don't excuse cruelty. I stand slowly, meeting Richard's eyes across the courtroom. You thought I would accept whatever crumbs you decided to throw me. You thought I was too weak, too loyal, too conditioned to fight back. You forgot that I built my own career. You forgot that I raised a son who values integrity over inheritance. You forgot that even a 12-year-old girl can recognize injustice when she sees it. My voice doesn't rise. I don't need to shout. The truth is loud enough. You spent 30 years taking from me my time, my trust, my peace. You tried to take my dignity too. But that, Richard, was never yours to take. Judge Matthews is writing, her pen scratching across the legal pad. When she looks up, her expression is granite. Mr. Collins, I've presided over hundreds of divorce cases. I've seen greed, I've seen betrayal, but I rarely see such calculated, systematic deception. The recordings speak for themselves. The financial records your attorney claimed were complete are clearly fraudulent, and your attempt to portray your wife as unstable while orchestrating her financial ruin is, she pauses, searching for words, unconscionable. Paul tries again. Your Honour, if we could have a recess to discuss, no. One word, final. I'm ruling today. Mrs. Collins, your attorney will submit a complete accounting of all assets, including those Mr. Collins attempted to hide. The Cayman property, the offshore accounts, all of it. I'm also awarding you full discretion in the division of marital assets, given Mr. Collins's clear bad faith. Additionally, I'm referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for possible fraud charges. Richard's face is ash white. Paul is frantically whispering to him, but Richard isn't listening. He's looking at me, and for the first time in years, he's seeing me. Not the wife who made excuses, not the woman who stayed quiet, the person who survived him. Judge Matthews isn't finished. As for Sophie Collins, she looks at my granddaughter, and her stern expression softens almost imperceptibly. Young lady, what you did took tremendous courage. You stood up for your grandmother when the adults around you failed to. That's not something I see often. Sophie's eyes shine, but she doesn't cry. She nods, solemn. The gavel falls. The sound echoes. It's over. Linda is gathering papers, already planning next steps. Daniel and Sophia are making their way through the crowd. But I stand still for a moment, letting it settle. 30 years, 3 decades of building a life with someone who saw me as an obstacle, a resource, a convenience. And now, freedom. Not the freedom Richard promised with his lies and his lawyers. Real freedom. The kind that comes from standing in the wreckage of what you thought your life was and choosing to build something true. Sophie reaches me first, wrapping her arms around my waist. I stroke her hair, this fierce little warrior. Thank you, I whisper. You would have done it for me, Grandma. Yes, I would have. I will. Daniel hugs me next, Sophia joining us. My family. Not the one Richard tried to turn against me, but the one that chose truth over comfort. As we walk out of the courthouse, the autumn sun is setting, painting everything gold. The light is warm on my face, and I realize I'm not afraid anymore. Not of Richard's anger or his lawyers or his attempts to rewrite history, because the truth is recorded now. Documented. Undeniable. Outside, my friend Evelyn is waiting, leaning against her car with a smile that says she knew I'd win. She's been here since the beginning, one of the few who never questioned my sanity. How do you feel? She asks. I take a breath. The air tastes different, cleaner. Free, I say, and I mean it. We go to dinner, the 5 of us, Daniel, Sophia, Sophie, Evelyn and me. We don't talk about Richard or the trial or the next steps. We talk about Sophie's science project and Daniel's new client and the trip Sophia's planning for next summer. We talk about ordinary things, beautiful in their normalcy. When Sophie asks if she can have dessert, I say yes without hesitation. We order too much chocolate cake, we laugh too loud, we take up space in that restaurant like we have every right to be there. Because we do. Later, when I'm home in the house that will soon be solely mine, I stand in the kitchen. The same kitchen where Richard made promises he never intended to keep. The same kitchen where Daniel and Sophia told me they would fight for me. The same kitchen where Sophie probably first decided to become a secret documentarian of her grandfather's sins. I make tea. Earl Grey, bergamot scenting the air. I sit at the table with my laptop, reviewing the notes Linda sent. The financial recovery will take time. The legal proceedings aren't completely over. Richard will fight, because men like him always do. But here's what he doesn't understand. I'm not fighting to hurt him. I'm not even fighting for money. I'm fighting for the truth, for the record, for every woman who's been gaslit into thinking she's crazy for noticing what's right in front of her. For my granddaughter, so she grows up knowing that silence isn't the same as peace, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is speak. The house is quiet around me. Soon I'll redecorate. I'll paint the walls colours Richard hated. I'll hang art that makes me happy. I'll turn this monument to a failed marriage into something that reflects who I actually am. But tonight, I just sit with the silence. The good kind. The kind that comes after the storm. My phone buzzes. A text from Sophie. Grandma, I love you. You're the strongest person I know. I smile, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I type back. We're strong together. Always. Because that's the truth Richard never understood. Strength isn't about dominating others. It's not about hoarding power, or manipulating outcomes, or controlling narratives. Real strength is standing up when it's easier to sit down. It's telling the truth when lies would be more convenient. It's a 12-year-old girl pressing record and a 38-year-old son saying enough, and a 56-year-old woman finally choosing herself. Justice doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just a pink USB drive with stars on it. Sometimes it's just the moment when someone stops accepting the unacceptable. And sometimes it's the quiet after, when you realize you don't have to fight anymore. You've already won. I finish my tea, rinse the cup, and head upstairs. Tomorrow there will be more meetings, more paperwork, more rebuilding. But tonight I'll sleep soundly for the first time in years. Because I know something Richard will never understand. You can't steal someone's truth. You can obscure it. Deny it. Try to bury it under lies. But truth has a way of surfacing. It waits. It gathers evidence. It finds allies in unexpected places, in sons who refuse to be complicit, in daughters-in-law with perfect aim, in granddaughters brave enough to bear witness. And when it finally speaks, it doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be heard.